Let's kick it off with Malik Nabers, a new name here for the show. A guy who a lot of people loved throughout the draft process. Obviously, we did because we nailed it that he's a good player because we've never been wrong. But What did you think here about Nabers really going off against the Commanders, albeit in a loss from the New York Giants?
Yeah, 10 catches, 127 yards, and a touchdown for Nabers. And what I think really sort of stands out is that 83 of those yards came after the catch.
Yes.
He forced 2 missed tackles. He was really, I think, first of all, Brian Dable deserves a lot of credit. He did an awesome job of getting Nabers open throughout the game. And I don't mean that and say, oh, Nabers is going to have trouble creating and getting open himself, but just conceptually, and I think that's true last week too. I didn't watch Nabers till after our show last week, but I think he's done a great job in general. Like, this is our guy. We took him in the top 10 of the draft. We're going to prioritize getting him the ball no matter what. We're going to live or die with this dude. 18 targets in this game. I'm on 30 routes. That's crazy. Like, basically every time they drop back to pass, it was to get the ball to Malik Nabers. And so I thought that was awesome. Dable kind of gotten him open. There's some rub concepts. They used a couple on 2 of them for big catch and runs as he kind of ran a shallow cross, caught the ball on the move, got help from a pick. The motion at the snap, on one, they sent him across the formation to the opposite flat. He sort of used a play fake, sent him across the formation. He pops out on the other side. The linebackers freeze with the play fake. Nobody flows to him as he comes across the formation. They get an easy completion to him. Just so happens they also blew the coverage, so he had a nice little run after catch there. There was a couple. They used good route concepts to set him up for what he does best. They didn't really hit the vertical ball so much with him down the field. They almost did on a couple. They tried a double move that they had set up with a couple deep curls. And that was where Nabers' talent really, you could see it really shine to me. You know, his stop-start, Trevor, is unbelievable. And that trait is so critical to be at full speed and to be able to stop and break back to the football. Every route concept that happens on a linear plane is going to be so effective for him throughout his career because we know he has the speed to get deep. He can threaten that, but also his ability to put his foot in the ground, break back to the football, whether it's on stop routes or curls and comebacks further down the field. He is going to be able to create separation against off coverage. And what was really encouraging in this game was also against press coverage. His work against press was probably the most encouraging part of this game. Washington's corners aren't good, but they are big and they are physical.
Right.
And so they tried to beat him up in the line of scrimmage. You saw some like one-hand stabs into his chest at the line of scrimmage. He either beat those with his hands or absorbed it, bounced around them, and got open after on his release. That part of the game, I think, is one of the most important things for him. As a guy who wasn't pressed all that much in college, seeing that work for him was huge because now I think we feel really confident everything he needs to do as an X receiver he can do. We already felt like he could do some of the other things, but if you want to put him outside tethered to the line of scrimmage and ask him to win on the vertical plane against physical coverage with the sideline as the friend of the opponent, he showed in this game he's absolutely able to do that. The deep speed is for real, creative with the ball in his hands. He had 2 drops in this game, focus stuff. I'm not really ever worried about drops, to be honest, unless they just completely plague a player. He also had 10 catches, as I mentioned. So he was 0 for 3 in contested catch spots. I think a lot of that's like a ball placement issue, and I don't really think that. I don't know that he's going to need to spend his whole career in contested catch spots, but when you have 18 targets, that's going to happen sometimes.
Right.
So I'm not super preoccupied with either of those numbers. Something to watch moving forward. I think the biggest thing is how effective is he against middle of the field coverages, because a lot of his damage was done on the outsides and underneath. And so any route concepts, if we're going to ask him to be the complete player, route concepts that break to the middle of the field, where those concepts break, especially against zone coverage, which we're often going to see in the middle of the field, how does he read it? Where does he sit down? Where does he break his patterns off? That part of it, I think, is still happening for him. Like, he is still feeling that part out. But the fact that he has no issues with the physicality of the game and that he welcomes it and that he's a competitor the way that he is with his gifts, he's going to be one of the best receivers in the league, Joe.
You know, and that goes into one of my talking points, exactly what you brought up there. He did a lot of his damage outside of the numbers towards the sideline, which is fine. Obviously, he did a lot of damage, and he played very well this past game. But, you brought up a couple of contested catch opportunities, 0 for 3 in contested catch opportunities. 2 of those throws, you talk about the ball placement maybe being a bigger culprit here. Like, 2 of those throws, he didn't really have a chance on, or not much. Like, if he would have caught 2 of those passes, it's like, okay, that's one of a crazy contested catch that you have there. But there was one throw where I went, I wish you were a little bit stronger at the catch point there for that one. You could have hauled that one in. I felt like I saw a little bit of that through LSU as well, and I think that is the key to Malik Nabers becoming what you said there, truly one of the best receivers in the game, because the more you come over the middle, the more comfortable you have to be with contested catch situations. You have to be okay with getting hit. And I loved that he showed a lot of fight when it came to dealing with the physical nature of playing against press coverage. That's obviously good. That's a really good step in the right direction, that you could play at the physical level in the NFL. But when he starts to develop more of that route tree and those in-breaking routes, when he starts to become that more complete receiver at this level, it will come with more contested catches. That's just the nature of throwing the ball over the middle and catching the ball over the middle. So where I'm not going crazy with the whole like, 0 for 3 contested catches situations, he's soft. Like, I don't think that that's the case. But the next big step for him is, one, developing those routes over the middle, but being a little bit better at contested catch spots. Now, he doesn't have to be like Drake London or A.J. Brown or whatever, like that level of like contested catch type of a monster, but hanging on to a couple that are over the middle where you're getting popped, or you know that you're going to like a physical tackle is going to come your way. If we can get a little bit of that with Malik Nabers, like you mentioned, the ingredients for the recipe is there for him to be an all-pro type of receiver.
Right. Yeah, he's a full package if he gets that, and I think that he's going to. I mean, I thought his college tape showed a player who was not hesitant about going over the middle of the field at all in those reps. And now a lot of that was against zone coverage or off coverage. A lot of the time was how he was working, but I thought his toughness and physicality is why I'm just not worried about these things at all, because I know he has the ball skills. We've seen him make crazy catches along the boundary. We've seen him go up and compete for the ball in the air. I know he has that. Yeah, he's not the biggest receiver in the world, so I know if he had to live here and make his entire living here, I don't know that would be a recipe for success. But because he's able to separate to the degree that he is, and because of his speed and how much he's going to threaten the vertical elements of the field at all times, I just think everything back to the quarterback, everything else is going to be open for him because of those things. And I think he's more than going to check the box in those areas too. So I think it was encouraging from a coaching perspective, because if you were, I don't know if it's from a fantasy football perspective as much, but just Malik Nabers is going to be heavily targeted, heavily utilized, heavily focused on in this offense. And Dable knows that. Everybody knows that. I'm not saying the whole Giants operation is great, but this aspect of things, they understand. They will live or die by how good this guy looks as a rookie. And it was awesome in week 2, the usage of him and everything that he put out there on the field.
Just to quantify how much the New York Giants utilized Malik Nabers in this game, PFF has started charting things like this since 2006. And since 2006, if you use a minimum of at least 25 receiving snaps in a game, Malik Nabers' wide receiver usage of 63%, being targeted on 63% of the routes that he ran, would be the number one score that PFF has ever charted since 2006. We thought that the Brandon Marshall game in 2009, the record-breaking game, we thought that had a little bit higher. It was just a tad lower, actually. He was at 61.4%, and Malik Nabers this past weekend was at 63%. So just insane. Insane usage. And we talked in the preseason. I think everybody talked in the preseason. Fantasy football people, everybody. They're like, the passing offense is going to run through Malik Nabers. It is just solely running through Malik Nabers at this point.
And they're going to be down, so it's going to work.
That number
He's going to get production.
Absurd. We talk about some of the best receivers in the NFL, like the CeeDee Lambs, the Justin Jeffersons, the Tyreek Hills. Those guys have a threat percentage of like 31%, 32%. And even that number is like, whoa, they are clearly a big-time emphasis in the offense. 63 is insane. That's nuts. That's like nobody else being on the field. So he had a great day.
And he's able to handle that as a rookie. That's, I think, what's even more impressive. Is like he's able to do that in a wide variety of different assignments and types of routes and things.
Yes.
And I think that's what's so encouraging, is that this isn't too big for him. And I know he took it hard after he had the drop toward the end of the game, but he is going to be, I mean, everything you see on tape, Trevor, is just like, he's at a different level in terms of how he moves than most rookie receivers we ever see. He's second in the league right now in targets. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he's up there, if he stays healthy, if he's up there for the league lead in catches by the end of the year.